Just change the way you think about money. Use some of these strategies and tactics to help you really accelerate that, and then create a, much bigger impact on life.
Welcome to the Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy podcast, where we help entrepreneurs like you exponentially build wealth through passive income to live a life of freedom and prosperity. Are you tired of paying too much in taxes, gambling your future on the stock market, and want to learn about hidden strategies for making your money work for you? And now your host, Dave Wolcott, serial entrepreneur and author of the best-selling book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a momentous occasion, the 100th episode of the Wealth Strategy Secrets podcast. I'm your host and guide through this intricate maze of wealth creation, and today represents a significant benchmark in our expedition together. Throughout 99 inspiring episodes, we've had the privilege to be firsthand with the ultra wealthy, peak performers, mindset masters, and investment experts, learning their secrets to success, extracting valuable insights, and uncovering the strategic maneuvers that have led them to significant financial success. In today's special episode, we're taking a reflective look back at the profound wisdom shared by our esteemed guests. We will revisit the pivotal insights and lessons that have shaped our holistic approach to wealth and life. And as we enter 2024, be prepared to be enthralled by an incredible lineup of future guests, each ready to offer new perspectives and insights that can accelerate your wealth journey. And to facilitate today's discussion, I'm so grateful to be joined by my daughter, Addie, who leads innovations at Pantheon. Here's to the next 100 episodes, uncovering more secrets of the ultra wealthy and pioneering our path to prosperity in 2024 and beyond. And lastly, if you guys are finding value in the show, please subscribe to the show and give us a rating and review. It really helps us to continue to get great guests for your learning.
All right, Dave. So I know everybody's really interested to hear a little bit about your background and, where you kind of came from to develop this holistic wealth strategy. So would you mind telling us some of the pivotal moments that led you to developing this holistic wealth strategy?
Yeah, sure, Addie. For me, it was really back in 2000 when the tech bubble was happening. And I can still remember to this day just waking up to a sea of red in the indices and watching, the Dow, the S&P, and all of my tech stocks that I had been working so hard to accumulate just get completely obliterated overnight. And I just felt really helpless with that. And I really didn't have any control right over that. And so, to me, that was kind of, one of my last straw moments in the stock market. And then in addition to that, it was also just these, I think myths around financial planning, things that we heard, things such as, put all of your money in 401ks, right? And then you're going to be able to defer your taxes, grow that capital over time, and that's really the best thing that you can do, right? But I started asking questions, things such as deferring your taxes. Does it really make sense to defer those taxes? It may help you out in the short term this year, but as I started to look into it, the one thing that I can say for sure is that taxes are likely going up in the future. The other thing is that, when you withdraw those funds, they're actually going to come out as ordinary income in that ordinary income tax bracket, which is the highest tax bracket you have. So why would you want to do that? Yet all of the advice is kind of pointing you there. I think so. There were a lot of things for me that really kind of led me to try to find out, how are the top 1% doing it? Because, I knew it wasn't in this traditional way.
Yeah, no, great points. I think a lot of people, all you hear are the same things over and over, these government-sponsored plans. And, these are what these big companies are offering employees. And if you don't take anything into your own hands to do some research and figure out your options, that's kind of all you're left with. So tell me a little bit more about how you kind of began researching or figuring out that there is a world of alternative investments out there, and what kind of helped you take the leap? Because I know it's scary to go against the norm and, what everybody else is telling you, these financial advisors, but how did you take that next step into this world of alternative investments?
Yeah, so for me, Addie, it was really realizing that I am my biggest asset. And at the time, in fact, there were plenty of times during my life that I didn't have the capital that I wanted to invest in that, next opportunity, whatever it might be, that real estate offering, things like that. So I was trying to figure out what are additional ways that I could accelerate my wealth even if I didn't have capital, and it really, after starting to study books, and remember, this is like back in 2000, right? So they didn't have great podcasts and YouTube and all these different resources, right? So I was having to network and meet different people. I was reading books, every book I could find around, wealth creation, entrepreneurship, things like that. But there's certain things, right, that I would see examples and read in a book, for instance, of how someone actually got a 10x or 100x return by frankly being creative, right? And thinking through, how could you create money out of an opportunity? So things such as like, resourcefulness, right? Resilience, those kind of things, were super important. And, to make this really real for everyone, we developed really, what I believe is a true formula for net worth, right, in a holistic manner, which is this formula that your financial IQ plus your mindset IQ plus your relationship capital plus your physical capital is really the equation for net worth. So again, going back to this example, when I didn't exactly have true like capital to work with, I didn't have money. What did I do? I was working on my relationship capital, maybe, creating new relationships with people that were playing the game better than I were. So they were exposing me to new opportunities that could be partnering opportunities, opportunities to create a new side hustle, tax saving strategies, things to actually, keep more of my hard earned cash flow, for me, right? So I was learning things like that. I've always learned through my journey that physical capital is so important. And what I mean by that is actually your health, right? Because you can have all the dreams in the world, but if you don't have your health, you're going to only have one dream. Right. So health is very important and can really drive your energy, your vitality to, achieve these things you want to do. And of course, mindset and also financial IQ, right? My financial IQ, early on in my career was limited to, what my financial advisor was telling me, which was just this kind of, tried and true advice about conventional thinking and how people are doing things conventional. So let's just kind of follow the crowd and kind of do that. But I realized that, hey, there's all kinds of other asset classes that I could start investing in. There's different return profiles based on where I am on my journey, different things that I could do, new opportunities I could create. And it wasn't until I started learning and educating myself that I was able to make some progress with those. And then, of course, mindset, right? We can't underestimate mindset because mindset is everything. We're just about to start a new year, 2024. And again, we're talking about the focus on today's podcast is what have I learned from doing 100 interviews with ultra wealthy investors? And I'll tell you, the one common denominator, Addie, is mindset. Right? All of these folks have a tremendous mindset of how they can, accomplish different things, get to new levels, get to new heights, and always having that growth mindset versus a scarcity mindset.
Yeah, awesome points. I think one of the biggest things that jumps out to me is the whole holistic word in your strategy. It really just shows how it's so much more than just the money, the numbers, the strategy, there's so much more to it. And I love how, your formula and some of these, vision planning things and exercises that you do with investors focus on a lot more than just the wealth aspect, but, your health, your mindset, all those things that you mentioned. So can you kind of dive a little bit more into the holistic aspect and how having, your core values be part of this vision, and, that constitution, or, what you want that family office to kind of stand for when you approach the holistic part of the wealth strategy?
Yeah, for sure. So, when I was going through my wealth journey, and even today, I just really love to, kind of peel back the layers on, what does wealth truly mean to you? Right. And it means different things to different people. Right. And it should not be measured by the number of zeros in your bank account. We're all trying to accelerate and trying to grow. But at the end of the day, I mean, what is the level of your relationships? Right. What type of health do you have? What type of values do you have? Are you contributing and making the world a better place, right? I mean, because I think in reality, these are the things that make us fulfilled as humans. And really, it's kind of this journey towards self-actualization. Right. We kind of, if you go back and you remember Maslow's hierarchy, we always kind of think at that base layer, right, where it's all around like financial security, and I've got to have a job, I've got to have income so that I can provide for my family. And that's important, right? We can't underestimate that. But if you can start to move behind that and go to the next level, it's all really about, creating an impact, having relationships in your life. And as Dan Sullivan likes to say, it's about these 4 freedoms, right? So not just freedom of money, but having freedom of purpose. Are you waking up every day being fascinated and motivated with the work that you're doing, whether you're a W-2 or an entrepreneur, right? Do you have freedom of time? Are you able to spend your day as your optimal day, right? Spending time on your health, on your relationships, on your family, on going to your kids' sports games, or, going to your older parents and making time to see them. Are you really doing that? Right? Because we can actually use our wealth to be able, to get there. Right. So I think freedom of time, freedom of purpose, and then freedom of relationships are also just so important in addition to just freedom of money.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love it. Let's dive in a little bit more to some of these alternative investment strategies and how they kind of, add to this wealth strategy formula and equation, and, how people can kind of apply this to their current portfolio.
Sure. So, I mean, one of the most insightful podcasts we had in the 100 episodes was the founder of Tiger 21, Michael Sonnenfeld, who has a community of over 1,300 members, and the average net worth in that community is 100 million. Okay, so these are truly the ultra wealthy. These are the best of the best. In terms of investors and people who are managing their wealth. And one of the biggest insights I got from that interview was that these folks literally only have 22% in terms of allocation of their entire portfolio in equities. Okay. So I know a lot of folks out there are listening to this podcast, they're learning and things like that, but I guarantee you a lot of people have more than 75% exposure to stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or 401ks, right, which still have the same type of exposure. So if the best of the best only have 22% in equities, I mean, wouldn't it make sense to actually model them and realize that there's a lot that's gone into that asset allocation model, and they're basically trying to limit their risks, right? So the other key buckets that was made up in their portfolio are real estate and also alternative investments in private equity. And of course, they have cash positions and life insurance as well. So it's really important to start to structure a portfolio model of your assets that's not just the traditional 60-40 that your financial planner is advocating, because by the way, those are all of the products they can sell to you under their umbrella. And you need to be looking at it, much more holistically, right? Which we view as assets that have strong macroeconomic fundamentals because, they're actually become more recession resistant. So you're in favor of supply and demand type economics like real estate, where you have shortages in certain markets and people need homes. I mean, those are basic needs that we have. It's not going away. We like to invest in energy because energy, it continues to grow wherever you live in the world, whatever industry you're in. And of course, we've got this growing middle class, right, around the world that now are getting, more cars, washing machines, all these things, and they need energy to support this. So investing on the side of looking at these macroeconomic fundamentals, I think, is really important. And then the other, real big lesson is looking at really having a three-dimensional return profile to investing in these assets. So if you had $1,000 worth of Amazon stock, let's say, you're only hoping for one thing, which is that stock to actually go up in value. And all you're doing is hoping it's going to go up in value. But in reality, we know that it can go sideways, it can go down. But when you invest in some of these assets that we've been talking about, such as real estate, energy, things of that nature, we're able to drive cash flow, tax efficiency, and also force an appreciation into the asset so we can drive up the value. We're not just hoping the value is going to go up. We have a business plan that's going to drive value and create a better return. So in that light, we see these as three-dimensional type return profile around these assets.
Yeah, no, very interesting. I don't know how people haven't, stumbled across these ideas sooner, but I guess it does take a little bit of understanding and knowledge to really know how you can utilize these. So I'd love if you could kind of talk about an example of, how that would look for somebody.
Yeah, and actually, I'll answer your first question too, Addie, which is really, why do people not really realize these are there? I mean, I never saw these, right? So these types of investments were typically reserved for the ultra wealthy. They only had exposure to these. But when the Jobs Act came out, they created essentially this form of crowdfunding, where investors can come in for as little as $50,000 into these types of assets and basically pool together and create what, many of us know as what's called a syndication. So we can all group our funds together, and then invest in a $50 million, real estate property versus in the past, people didn't have access to these types of investments. So as long as you're an accredited investor, you can at least get access. But this is why, no one has typically really seen them because they've been really invisible to a lot of people. And a lot of people, they become accredited, but they haven't really realized what accredited access actually gets them, right? And again, their financial planners aren't advising them about these opportunities unless they have it in their portfolio.
Yeah. Could you share like an example of how maybe one of these deals looked, the return profile, some of those things in comparison to, let's say a stock?
Yeah. So, one of the presentations I had worked on that I spoke at recently, it was really interesting looking at a multifamily property over the course of a 20-year period. And we compared essentially, your traditional investment, if you left your money, and I think we had it in the S&P for about a 20-year period, and that was growing at a 7% return. Which was actual during the time frame that we estimated at. That was the return profile that it made, right? Was 7%. However, one thing again, planners never really put in front of you is that growth is then subjected to taxes, fees, and inflation. So what you thought was like that 7% return and growing over the long haul was actually more like 2.5%, right? And if I compared that to, let's just talk about a simple, a simple investment that most people understand, which would be multifamily real estate or apartment buildings, right? And in this case, you're able to drive actual passive income from the investment. You can actually use bonus depreciation to offset that income. So that income is coming in to you tax free. And there is some type of business model where, here's a simple example, right? We go into one of these properties and convert 300 toilets to low flow toilets and reduce the water bill by $150,000 a year, right? Which improves your net operating income in the asset, right? So that's really an example, right, of how you can get that three-dimensional return in that, in that asset class. And again, you compare that to, how you're doing in the stock market, and, it considerably outperforms with less risk.
Yeah, definitely. I'm convinced. Yeah, let's also talk about, I really want to hear more about the infinite banking strategy. I know you've really interviewed a lot of top-notch guests like MC on here about the strategy and how it's kind of a foundation for your holistic wealth strategy approach. So let's dive into that and kind of some of the opportunities that it offers investors, but also how it kind of forms that foundation to this strategy.
Sure. This truly is one of the wealth strategy secrets of the ultra wealthy. And the more I got to know high net worth, ultra high net worth families, family offices, they literally use this strategy as a cornerstone to their wealth, right? Because we often think about wealth in terms of how do we grow and multiply our wealth, right? What is that rate of return? But at the same time, we want to be able to protect our wealth, right? And then we're also looking at multipliers. And this is something that the ultra wealthy do so well, right? Which is, how can you get $1 to be doing multiple things at the same time, right? So by using a properly structured whole life insurance policy and using what we call infinite banking. Infinite banking is really the process of you becoming the bank, utilizing this life insurance policy. What you can do is create tax-free income, right? That's compounding over time and allows you to do many different things. So number one, you'll never outlive your money in future years, right? Unlike the stock plan, which has you taking money out every year and killing your golden goose when you get into your later years. This one, it's constantly accelerating. One of the biggest things is you have access to the capital. So you can actually, as you fund the policy, you're able to take capital out and then go pay for your kids' college. Use it for maybe you're in between jobs or your spouse lost their job and you need to bridge for a certain amount of time. Well, I can just borrow this capital, no questions asked, fill out one form, have the capital, wired to your account inside of a week, right? I mean, that is really powerful. And I mean, let's just talk for a second, Addie, about how important is that in this specific time frame that we're in. So January 2024, we know there's a ton of uncertainty in the world in terms of, geopolitical events. We've got this, election, right? That's coming up, impending recession, right? That's kind of looming, right? So, we have all of these things going on, and then there's just so much uncertainty. Well, how do you create certainty in an uncertain world? It's trying to take back control, right? And be proactive in planning for some of these different things, right? So if we were able to, again, start to allocate some of our investment portfolio into a vehicle such as this, you've now created this liquidity strategy that is, not only giving you the ability to access this capital, being kind of a reserve capital and taking the money out when you need it, but it's also providing you with this, tax-free compounding, and that's creating more velocity in your overall portfolio. right? So you start to get this working for you in conjunction with some of those other, asset classes that we talked about. And you can slowly start to build up this whole snowball effect where all of these things are working together. And now all of a sudden, your portfolio is growing 20%, 30%, 50% and more.
What if everything you thought you knew about investing was wrong? Would you like to create a wealth strategy like the top 1% have? And get exclusive access to top private equity deals that provide downside protection, tax efficiency, predictable cash flow, and have a lucrative upside? Discover how with the Pantheon Advantage and join our investor club today at pantheoninvest.com.
Yeah, no, it's really powerful when you kind of see how it works, the tax-free accumulation of wealth, and also just it's part of that tax mitigation strategy. Could you talk a little bit more about the tax side of it and also maybe the legal protections or kind of that like sheltering effect that this policy could have on your money?
Yeah, I never thought I'd be so excited about talking about taxes, but after years of, running businesses as an entrepreneur, I just got so frustrated with, number one, never knowing. We'd finish the year off, you'd run your financials, see how you were doing, but never really knew what was our tax liability. And then April would come around and you've got this massive bill that you just were not anticipating. And so I kind of just worked up the chain, started to work with more prestigious CPA firms all the way up. And, I continued to get the same results, which is they're basically doing your tax planning in a rear view mirror. Right? Versus doing proactive tax planning and looking at your entire environment and then trying to structure different things into your overall strategy. So in this case, you asked the question about infinite banking, right? That should be something that a proactive CPA should be advising you on, that, you can actually, this tax-free compounding even in the infinite banking policy can be so strategic and can way outperform, even the higher return in the stock indices with much more predictability. Now, do you need to put everything in there? No, right? But having some allocation in there that increases your predictability, your control, and reduces that uncertainty.
Yeah, no, it really ties into the concept of becoming your own bank too, and giving you control over that money. And, the tax stuff is just an added benefit almost. But yeah, I also, applying that strategy to somebody like me, or maybe a really high net worth individual with 100 million, net worth, how would the strategy look for, comparing somebody like me who's a little bit younger and not as far along in their journey compared to somebody who's at 100 million?
Yeah, it's interesting. And this is really one of my passions, is really trying to share these lessons learned that I've, had over the years, and really impart them to people wherever they are in their journey. And so that they can really accelerate their results, right? You can get there so much faster than I did, right? With the proper education and support, having a team, that supports you through the journey, right? And making, the paradigm shift from the traditional, conventional planning type of thing. But it's been so rewarding in my position over the years to watch people implement this holistic wealth strategy and kind of go through all the different, 5 phases of it. And again, at different levels of net worth. I am seeing people completely grow their net worth by over 7 figures. And then that continually just keeps compounding. And it's really massive results, versus the typical, kind of 7%, set it and forget it in your 401k or in the stock market. But it's implementing things like, the infinite banking, right? So you got tax-free compounding and strategy. It's about implementing a proper tax strategy that can reduce your number one biggest expense, right? It's about reducing some of those bigger wealth destroyers, like looking at stock market losses over the long term and how that really impacts your wealth. It's about diversifying into different asset classes that can create, what I call is a 100-year portfolio. Can you get asset classes that are much more recession resistant and can work through, multiple generations and things like that? It's about creating a team around you that's totally supporting you and your vision, right? And what that means to you. Maybe it's, maybe you're later on in life and you're looking for more cash flow at that point, right? So you're structuring your assets like that and you're getting the right asset protection planning advice and estate planning advice at that point in time, right? Putting all of these elements in place, which is essentially what a family office is, right? A family office is a structure that if families have 100 million or more, let's say, they have a dedicated team of all of these different types of professionals working all around them that all support their vision and what they're trying to do, and we're working on their wealth every day, versus having a traditional financial planner who's giving, one-dimensional advice, right, based on the masses, and again, only recommending products that kind of fit into their suite. Right. So I think having this holistic view of that is just super critical for people as they grow their wealth, but, building that right team and starting to implement these things. And again, I'm just, I couldn't be happier to see the results that, we're having with investors and people really transforming their lives. Their mindset is just really amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. You keep touching on, family and generations and, wealth that can stand the test of time. Do you want to talk a little bit more about legacy and how, you kind of plan to achieve your goals related to creating a legacy for yourself and your family?
Yeah, sure. Legacy, it's really fascinating, right? So the statistics are that 75% of G2 or your generation 2 wealth is actually lost. And by the time it gets to G3, it's 90% of all of that wealth was actually lost, right? So if you're a Gen 1 person and you're an entrepreneur, an investor, you've worked hard all of your life, there's a real responsibility to pass on what you've learned around building that wealth. Like you're not just trying to pass on the wealth itself, but it's the values. What about all that hard work, you put into, achieving that? What about all the values that are so important in your family that holds your family structure together? Don't you want to pass that on to future generations? So I do. That's very important for me. It's one of my goals is to really have, these values, be passed on to future generations. And also I would like to make impact in the world. I would like to really transform the way people think about money. And in doing so, they can really create unlimited freedom in their lives. And then they can also just start to live, much more of a fulfilling and extraordinary life, right? Versus being stuck in some of these old paradigms that we're all in, or maybe limiting beliefs or conventional thinking, whether it comes from Wall Street or corporate America or the government, but just change the way you think about money. Use some of these strategies and tactics to help you really accelerate that, and then create a, much bigger impact on life.
Yeah. I love the phrase that you're your biggest asset. And, you constantly have to be sharpening the saw. You have to be learning, educating yourself, and kind of using all of these things to kind of improve yourself before you can kind of take action, and impact others. So do you want to talk a little bit about, your personal goals for growth and, kind of improving yourself? I know you've talked about health and how important that is to you as well. And, the financial IQ aspect and always learning. I'd love to hear a little bit about what you've learned in terms of how you can improve and grow yourself.
Yeah, it all starts with creating a vision. And I think in this day and age, it's so hard. We're all constantly bombarded with the amount of information that's coming at us, with the amount of things that we have to do and kind of get done. But again, this is such a perfect timing for people to really think about. If you don't have crystal clear clarity on your vision, sit down this weekend and work on it, with your spouse, right? Because it's the beginning of a new year. There's a lot of things kind of going on, but it all starts with just understanding that vision, because that's, just think about it. It's like anytime you go on a road trip, right? What's the first thing you do? You plug in your GPS coordinates and you say, hey, we're going to this location. There's going to be bumps in the way and there's going to be stops and things like that. But we're ultimately getting to this destination. Well, sadly, people haven't really spent the time to do that with their wealth, with their life, right? But when you do have that clarity on where it is you're going, then you can bust through walls. You can deal with obstacles. You can set your allocation of your portfolio to support that. You can build a team of like-minded people and mentors to support you, to get there. And all of those things, from your original question, it's all around investing in yourself, right? Creating a vision is investing in yourself. That time couldn't be spent, better than really having true clarity in terms of, where it is you're going. And, I believe we're on this planet for such a short amount of time. And don't you want to just absolutely live it to your max potential? Because the last thing we want to do is just kind of wake up and, wow, another decade has gone by, another year has gone by, and we haven't done those things that we've really wanted to do. We haven't maybe traveled. We haven't spent time with loved ones like we've really wanted to do. So I really encourage people to kind of think about that, and wherever you are on your journey, just think about creating that vision. Think about getting to where it is you want to go, and then investing in yourself to be able to get that. Are you investing in your health? Right? How many things are you doing on a daily basis in your health to get you to the goal that you want to have? How are you investing in your relationships? How are you investing in your education? It's funny to me, right? I never considered myself a good student going through school. I worked hard to get B's, let's call it that, and just never liked memorizing things and going to school and all of that. And here I am now spending six figures on my own education through masterminds and online courses and training and everything. And I mean, I'm spending so much money on my own education. And it's interesting, right? But I'm seeing the big, ROI from that, and that's massive. And then, and I love to be able to, share that with others. So that's such a huge takeaway, is investing in yourself is, you will always have the biggest return on that, 10x or 100x type return when you invest in yourself.
Yeah, definitely. It shows how it's been paying off, investing in yourself and putting yourself first. And, that's kind of the first step to any of this. You can't get anywhere without your plan and your vision. So do you have any advice for, investors or people listening today on where they can start in their journey and kind of set 2024 off with good, strong intentions for the next year?
Yeah, I think, to really kind of summarize that, I mean, let's again kind of go back to that formula, and we can kind of summarize that formula for folks, which is, your net worth is equal to your financial IQ plus your mindset IQ plus your relationship capital plus your physical capital. So if you're short in one area, right, or let's say maybe you don't have the time right? To, invest in, your physical capital at the moment or something, right? Maybe you can change some of your habits and your goals to increase your financial IQ this year, right? So have you joined any mastermind groups, right? Do you have any accountability partners, right? In fact, I mean, speaking of mastermind, that was one of the reasons we created our mastermind and virtual family office, is so that people could, plug into all of these things. They could transform their mindset by sitting in a room with other like-minded people trying to get to the next level and learning on how you do that. It's about creating accountability partners to say that, hey, I am going to, get in place an asset protection because I've worked so hard. I've worked 30 years to get in place what I actually have in place. But what if all of a sudden I was facing a $10 million lawsuit, or what if you get that call from a doctor that says, you're challenged with something, right? Are you prepared for that? But, by being in this kind of, mastermind type community, you have accountability partners, you have like-minded people helping you to level up, helping you to expand, your mindset, and also identifying new opportunities and strategies, right? And new partnerships, strategies, so much of all this is financial engineering as well, right? How can we, you're only limited really by your mindset and where you can think of, the opportunities coming in. So, what are you doing to be able to do that? So, I think the advice and the takeaway as people enter the new year is try to put that formula into place. And, I understand that you may not be able to do everything, at once, but really try to make some investments in your education, in your mindset, and your relationships and your health. I mean, those are the key ones that are really going to, give you some progress. And I think the last comment, I'll make, Addie, as well is, and this is Dan Sullivan's question, which is just such an insightful question, is, if we are having this conversation 1 year from now, what needs to happen for you to feel good about your progress personally and professionally? And then you can break that down further by identifying what are your top 3, dangers or risks that you have in your life. What are your top 3 opportunities that you have that you need to take advantage of? And what are your top 3 strengths that can help you seize those opportunities and mitigate those risks?
Awesome. Yeah, I know personally for me, a goal is to listen to more podcasts because I really feel like the, analogy that you use pretty often about, learning a new language, the best way to do that is to just fully immerse yourself into the culture and be there, speak it, hear it, learn it, listen to it on the TV. It really helps kind of shift your way of thinking because it's all you're around and your influence and what you hear. And the same goes for this financial education journey. You're not going to learn if you're not around people that are talking about the same things, speaking the same language. And it's really awesome how different groups of like-minded individuals can come together and just accelerate how quickly you pick up and learn these concepts and these critical, ideas and strategies, because it's never a one size fits all. Everybody's got a little bit of a different situation, but applying these same concepts is really cool to, be able to apply them to yourself once you're hearing it in different contexts and how different people, interpret these things. So love all that.
Awesome.
Do you have any, what's your biggest takeaway, I guess, from the past year and the past 100 episodes interviewing people? Do you have any favorite, things you've learned, interesting things, or what was your, maybe favorite episode?
Yeah, I mean, some of my favorite episodes were, we talked about Michael Sonnenfeld with Tiger 21. That was amazing. Their asset allocation strategy, that was super insightful. I really enjoyed the conversation with Garrett Gunderson as well. He's in the space of wealth creation, for many years, right? And thinking about things alternatively. And, we had a lot of parallels in our journey in terms of the discoveries he made, once he started. In fact, he was actually a financial planner, and then started to get some exposure to family offices and seeing how the ultra wealthy were really kind of investing, and then starting to use some of those strategies and tactics. I thought that was quite insightful. Neil Bawa, he is the, data analytics guru around investing in real estate. So some really good thoughts from there. We've had just so many good guests, and I'm really excited for next year as well, Addie. We have a number of even better and bigger guests that we're going to continue to help people and providing this education, that's free for everyone to access, so that, they can really just start growing their game and leveling up.
Awesome. Well, I'm super thankful that you get to, bring this content to us, and, we get to sit down and hear a conversation. And, I think you bring a lot of great insight and great experience, the right questions to ask. So thank you for having me and, having all these great guests that we get to kind of, learn from as well, right alongside you.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity, Addie, to share everything with our listeners. And we're going to continue working hard for all of you, because at the end of the day, that's what really matters. Are you able to increase your financial IQ, your relationships, all these things, through the podcast and everything. So we're pretty excited about that. And one of the things that we wanted to do to kind of help you with your journey and really try to kick off the new year is to provide a holistic wealth strategy scorecard. So you could fill that out and kind of get some insights as to, do you have any gaps in a particular area? Are you strong in a certain area? And it might just be kind of, something that, lights a fire in terms of, again, your vision, your goals, what you're planning for the year. And people can go to pantheoninvest.com/invest. And if you just fill out that form, we will send an email to you with a scorecard.
Awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
You bet. Thanks, Addie.
Yeah, have a great new year.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wealth Strategy Secrets. If you'd like to get a free copy of the book, go to holisticwealthstrategy.com. That's holisticwealthstrategy.com. If you'd like to learn more about upcoming opportunities at Pantheon, please visit pantheoninvest.com. That's pantheoninvest.com.